All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for tuning in to the Everything Real Estate Show. I'm so excited to present to you Nathan Dart, and we're going to be talking about a thing called final offer. If you've ever bought anything on eBay, think auction for homes with a buy it now button. And we're going to cover some things like, well, how do you handle conditions like a home inspection or a house to sell, or I want to buy the home, but I don't have the ideal closing date for the seller. So we're going to cover all that kind of stuff. We're going to cover I like the idea of this platform, but what if the other realtors, the general public, don't buy into it initially? So we're going to cover all that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to be a great conversation. I love the idea of transparency that an online platform is going to bring with a level of professionalism to our industry, and still make professional representation by realtors crucial to each transaction that you're able to use this platform for. So anyway, stay tuned for a great conversation. My name is Cody Kraus, and I'm a real estate broker owner that's obsessed with everything real estate. Investing, building, selling, developing, farming, you name it. I've been doing this since I was 18 years old, and I've learned a ton through trial and error, and I've met some of the coolest people ever. This is a show where I invite these people on to talk about their experiences and mine, plus everything else real estate. Let's go. Welcome back to the Everything Real Estate Show, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in this week. Excited to have Nathan Dart from Maryland, USA on the call with me today. For anybody who's not familiar with Nathan, who is Nathan?
Who is Nathan, other than this guy just south of the border? No, Cody, thanks, man, for having me on. I'm excited to be here with you. Obviously, we've known each other for a number of years through Richard Robbins. Who is Nathan? Well, I'm, other than being, a husband to my wife, Danielle, my boss, really. I mean, I have to just do everything I can to make sure I appeal to her. But also father of two children, Landon and Gabriella, but also second generation real estate agent. I've grown up in this industry my entire life. I love this business. I love what it is that we do and the contribution that we make. I grew up in it. I was 10 years old when my dad started selling real estate. And from there, I got to see him grow a business, the sacrifices that you have to make, in having this as a career. As we know, Cody, in real estate, this is not 9 to 5, and we certainly don't get weekends off. So it's an investment, not only in money to be successful, but it's an investment in time. And, growing up in this business, I got to see that. My parents helped bring RE/MAX actually to Maryland back in the mid 80s. And I was that kid that would hang out in the conference room having to do their homework and have to rely on other agents to drive me to my baseball practices because my dad was usually on listing appointments. It was one of those things.
You're not selling the lifestyle too good yet.
Is there we love this? Like, we've been doing it all our entire lives, Cody. What else would we be doing, right?
Yeah. So obviously, there's some pros that come with it.
There are some perks. There are some perks.
Yeah.
I got my real estate class. I took it when I was 17, and then went on to take my real estate test when I was 18. I was a senior in high school, and then Dad said, that's great and all, but you're going to go to college first before you start selling real estate. So did that, and been selling real estate actively now since 2001. And through that period of time, I've built a real estate team. I assumed my parents' brokerage for about 10 years. I assumed that liability in 2008, which was a fun time in real estate south of the border.
Yeah.
Sorry you guys missed out on that. And then I actually sold the RE/MAX office a few years ago, and so I could focus on running the real estate team, and also, have an opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of RI around the world and doing training, coaching for other agents in our marketplaces, and teaching them how to, build a business that supports the life that they ultimately want to live. And so that's a little bit about me. And but I love this business, and I want to participate any way I can to be able to make a positive and unique contribution to the industry, not only for us as agents, but also the consumers that we serve. So that's my primary, and of course that's what got me connected with Final Offer, which I'm sure we'll talk about through this conversation.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's one heck of an intro. And so if you started in 2001, that means next year is going to be year 25, eh?
Weird. Doesn't even make sense. I don't know how that happened.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm lucky enough. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was telling somebody the other day, I've got as probably a lot of your callers probably we're doing the same thing with personal promotion, whether it be on benches or moving trucks. Like I've had a moving truck that I've had for since 2003. And when my first truck that I had, my face, I looked like I was 16, like I wasn't even old enough to even barely drive that truck.
Yeah.
And just recently, I'm having to redo the trucks. I'm having to get a facelift on this truck so people know that I'm actually old enough now to sell real estate. So, but yeah, Cody, it's weird to think 25 years.
I love it. That's awesome. No, and I'm lucky enough to have met you a number of years ago. I think we were in a Mac group together within RRI at one point, and definitely heard you speak through that process, gotten to know you a little bit over the years, and you've certainly been a valuable resource, I know, for many realtors across North America. So thank you for that, and I appreciate you taking the time today to talk to us. To give our audience a bit of an idea about what this podcast is going to be about, we could really dig into, lessons that Nathan's learned as a realtor and as a team leader and as a broker owner and all that kind of stuff. And you know what, maybe we will do that another time if I'm lucky enough to have you on the show another time too. But if it's okay with you, I think what I really want to dig into today is final offer. And for people that are not familiar with it, it's something that is in 15 states currently. And is it 3 provinces, or it's 2 right now and it's coming to BC shortly?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and soon to be throughout all of Canada as well. I would assume by the end of 25.
Awesome. And so essentially what Final Offer is an online offer platform, and it is able to accommodate the open offer process. So essentially, if you want to have an eBay style auction for a home, Final Offer, I would say, has gained credibility as probably the most accepted platform to host this type of sale process. So before I start describing parts of it and get most of it wrong, I'll deflect that to you. And I guess I'll open up the conversation because our guests are probably wondering, what exactly is Final Offer, Nathan, and why did it come about in the first place?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, let me start with what is Final Offer and how it kind of came about. But what Final Offer is, it's a consumer-facing platform that allows buyers, sellers, and agents the ability to negotiate their real estate transaction in whatever level of transparency they want to use and that they're comfortable with as far as their strategy. When negotiating with complete transparency, it allows you to bring trust back into the negotiation. Why is that important? Is because what we know is that in our industry right now, we're interesting time where there is a lack of trust in our industry. And the only way that we can help enhance that overall is by bringing transparency to that. Now, when I say transparency, a lot of times agents get a bit nervous around this whole idea about transparency, right? Well, transparency only helps bring trust back in, but it also demands the best results for the consumer. Because if you think about it, what does the seller want? The seller wants to be able to sell their home for as much money as possible with the very best terms. But Cody, what you and I know clearly is that the only way that we can ensure that that happens for a client or seller is by demanding that we create competition. And it's through that competition that we can then demand the very highest price and best terms. But while we know we can do that for the sellers, we also have to be mindful of the other side of the transaction. That's the buyer.
Yeah.
Well, what does the buyer want? Well, one, they want a fair chance to compete, and especially in a lot of our markets have been highly competitive for quite some time. They want to have a fair chance to compete, but then number 2, they never want to feel like they overpaid for a house.
That's the big
one. But
one.
If a buyer can see, if a buyer can see exactly what it is that they have to compete against in order to win, they're never going to feel as if they've overpaid. Well, this is all well and good for serving our clients, which, yes, as agents, that is your priority, is to make sure that you demand the very best results for your seller and your buyer. But for you as an agent right now, think about it. The market that you're in, I think there was a stat that came out of maybe last week that said 71% of agents in 2024 did not sell a house.
They did not close one transaction. I think that was a Redfin report. I read that also. Yeah.
That's insane. That's insane. So, but it makes sense because last year, 2024, I thought 23 was bad. 24, we saw the least amount of transactions we've ever seen in North America in the last 35 years. And that included a pandemic which shut down the world.
Yeah.
So with these types of numbers, for consumers that may not otherwise have an agent that they work with, they think all of us as agents that we're all the same. The reality is clearly we're not. And for that final offer, being able to negotiate, to be able to do what you do in business, to elevate the experience with, for everybody else, also exposes you for being the great agent that you are. But while it'll expose you for being a great agent, what it also does is make some other agents nervous because it also exposes the agents that are not so great at what they do. And final offer allows you to truly differentiate yourselves from those other agents in the marketplace. Why is that so important? Because think about it. I mean, today's market, with as tight as it is, with the low inventory and still a tremendous amount of demand from buyers, if you can't operate and be able to prove your value, how they're going to differentiate is based on price alone.
Well,
And see, the thing is, so many.
I mean, we're in the data age, right? So you can find just about everything online. And 20, 30 years ago, when there was MLS books, the value that an agent brought to it was, I have something that you can't get without me. Now the consumer can find just about everything online. And I firmly believe that people are going to make the best decision when they have the most amount of information, and the best decision for them. And although someone might think that someone else is overpaying, they're making the decision that fits them based on the most amount of information possible. So if they're seeing what the competition is bidding, then ideally that brings the transparency that you're talking about to the transaction, and it gives us more data too, because instead of just relying on a realtor saying, yeah, there was 28 offers, you know what, no, 3 people backed out, it ended up being 25. The sellers want to disclose this part and not that part, but then they changed their mind. Now the consumer is actually getting the live updates on it too, right? Sorry to interrupt you there, but I just figured I'd throw that in there.
Well, you're spot on. And, we've obviously we've grown up listening to this and understanding this with part of RI is that, with the marketplace being that consumers have all this information, they also, because they have this information, they're convinced they know more than we do as agents. And what we have to do, our priority, our obligation is to educate those consumers beyond what is they think they know, but they don't know. Because if we can't do that, we are not more valuable to them. And there's no reason for them to want to work with us. The thing about when you look at this data points as well, and the amount of data that's out there, for some, that's concerning. And the reason why it's concerning is because they don't understand the data. See, agents that have the opportunity to serve their clients are the agents that are be able to translate that data and how it best serves their clients, because the agents that deserve the business are the ones that can be true authorities and advocates for their clients to make sure that they're protected.
Well, and they got to make it palatable. Like too much data is not a good thing if they don't understand what they should actually be looking at. And it's funny, like you guys are in the States, so you have the Fed that releases all the, news on interest rates and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of different indicators that they're looking at. We have the Bank of Canada. And it's funny because I don't think anybody in Canada even knew who set interest rates or what the Bank of Canada was or who Tiff Macklem was, or nobody followed the Fed as closely as they do now. And now if you want an update on what's going on at the Bank of Canada or the Feds, you just follow a realtor on Instagram. And same thing, real estate stats, they, used to get published once a month by the real estate board and the realtors would look over it. That was about it. And now everybody's making their infographics, but even realtors a lot of them are just taking the data and putting the data out there, but not making it palatable to the general public. So data is a great thing, but if you don't know how to discern the data or what the data actually means, then it's useless. So you have to be able to take all of it and filter it out and give it to the consumer and say, this is what it means for you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, not just, yeah, sales are up 25%. Well, compared to when and what was happening then, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So yeah, you're right. And what's been powerful about final offer, in particular, as far as the data points that we're able to collect, is not only can we see the offers that people have to compete against in order to win, but what is that how you identify the best offer as an agent and a seller is not always based on price. It's also based on the terms and conditions that they may have attached to that particular offer. Yep. Meaning that, like, okay, you might have a home inspection, you might have a financing, appraisal, not willing to buy it as is, whatever it might be. But those types of conditions, when attached to an offer, does have a bearing in regards to what makes that offer more or less attractive. And the value of final offer with the level of transparency is the sellers can then set proper expectations with the consumer, the buyers, and say, look, Yeah, we value certain conditions or the lack thereof in this way to be able to say, hey, it's okay if you choose to have a home inspection. But if you do, we would devalue your offer compared to somebody else that doesn't have an inspection by $2,500.
Yeah,
If you chose not to buy it as is, that's fine. But if you do, we'll devalue by 2,500. And it allows an even playing field for people to be able to compete from. But it's also valuable insight because when working with a buyer that's just getting started in their searches, we can now educate that buyer based on what is going on in the particular areas that they're looking in to show them that in this area you can expect to see this type of competition, this type of run on price, but you'd also be able to see how people value certain conditions such as inspections, financing, appraisal, and so on and so forth. So that additional information only helps educate them to set proper expectations, but really helps serve them better.
definitely. I know. So, Trust in Real Estate Services Act, TRESA, is what replaced the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act 2002 in Ontario, which is mumbo jumbo for anybody outside of Ontario, especially to our neighbors down south. But essentially, this was the act that laid the groundwork for open offers, or essentially what they wanted to be the end of blind bidding, or the option of it doesn't have to be blind bidding, it can be open bidding too. And so I had a number of people when this first came about ask me, like, what do you think about, having an auction style sale in real estate? And I said, well, it's cool watching Barrett Jackson and they're auctioning off the vehicles on TV down south, and it's a great thing. But I would imagine there's certain qualifications that the bidders have met. So they're approved with their paddle number to go up to a certain number of dollars. They understand that when they're buying from Barrett, they're expected to wire the money within a certain number of days, and it's going to close right away. I said, when you're selling a home, it's not like selling a car. There might be a family living in that home, and they might need the money from that home to buy their next home. These vehicles that are coming into Barrett Jackson, they've been gone through. They probably already have a mechanic's full in-depth report of the suspension health and the brakes, the rust on the body or the frame, all that kind of stuff, the fuel system. When it comes to a home, like a lot of times the home's being bought on condition of sale of another property, financing, appraisal, inspection, septic inspection, all that kind of stuff you mentioned there, Nathan. And I'm going, until we figure out how to take that part out of it, which is almost like the human component, I don't think an auction's ever going to work for a home. And so originally when I first heard you talk about final offer, I was like, Nathan, well, how exactly would this part work? Like, how do you just make every offer subject to no conditions? How does that work? And you said, well, no. Essentially, the conversation that you have with a seller is, if we had a cash offer with no conditions, that'd be great. And if it closed on this date, it would be ideal. So if you were to take another closing date, how much would it take for you to accept a different closing date? And if you were viewing one offer that had a home inspection and one offer that didn't, how much extra value would you attribute to the offer that has less conditions or no conditions? And so you actually sit down with your seller and say, okay, so ideally we close on April 21st. Now, if someone's unable to close on April 21st and they can close, say, May 5th, how much is that delay worth to you? And you might have to talk to your bank and go, okay, well, that would require a bridge loan. It's going to cost us X dollars in interest and an extra appraisal. We got to break the loan, all that kind of stuff. The home inspection, we don't have any concerns, but we know that if you're looking for something, you might find it. And it could, end up being a $5,000 or a $10,000 negotiation point. Condition of financing. We would love to know that the buyer we're working with has already been fully pre-approved and doesn't expect to have an issue with the appraisal, but has the means available to cover it if there is, a disproportionate appraisal to sale value, things like that. So the seller can say, if everything was perfect and they met my closing date and had no conditions, I might take $500. But if they have a sale of house condition and a home inspection condition and a financing condition, you know what? Each of those conditions to me are worth an extra $7,500 because I know I'm going to have to wait more time and the deal could potentially fall apart. So that's how you guys make different offers equalized in a sense, right? So you would discount the condition or the number of conditions with a dollar amount in the seller's eyes. And so to bring the human component back into it, every scenario is going to be different. And one seller might value a cash offer substantially higher than another one, where your other seller might be very, very patient and say, nope, you know what, I don't care as much about the cash offer. I'm going for highest dollar only, and I can afford to hold it until I get that high dollar. Do you want to speak to that a little bit and how that process works?
Absolutely. Well, I want to start too with what you're talking about as far as the auction and why the auctions don't necessarily work in residential real estate. Because with an auction, as you know, you set a price, and once you set that price and it opens up, well, as an agent, our hands are now tied behind our back. And our clients hire us to negotiate the very best outcome for them. In an auction, we are not able to negotiate because the auction just kind of has its own life of its own. And that's what made Final Offer unique. Final Offer is an offer negotiation platform. Yes, can it create a experience of an auction? Sure. But it allows the agent seller to be able to engage or intercede where necessary to make sure that we package the very best outcome for their clients to give them the very best results. And it's so important that this happens. But while we do this, it is transparent where everybody can see exactly what's happening to where they can ultimately make a decision on whether or not they want to move forward or not based on what they're seeing and how it's all coming together. See, the reality is that consumers, as you know, they'll pay for a negotiator because a negotiator is going to show them a return of their return of their investment. But what they've been paying for in the past is an offer, like an order taker. And nobody should get paid a substantial amount of money for anything for just being an order taker. Because all you're doing as an agent is saying, hey, let me put it on the market. We're gonna list it on the MLS. We'll take a few pictures. We're gonna put a sign in the front yard. Maybe host an open house. Sit back, collect offers, and then out of the offers that we collect, say, oh, you know what? This is the highest offer seller. You should just take this one. Well, why would anybody want to pay for that? Well, they will pay for somebody that's a true negotiator that can prove that that what they're doing, the systems and the strategies that they have, will produce the results that they ultimately deserve. And that's what's been so powerful because what I can do in using Final Offer as this negotiation tool is truly listen to what is the seller wants. Yes, we know they want as much money as possible, of course. But to what you're saying is those conditions, the inspections, or need a home sale contingency, not have a home sale contingency, needs rent back, free rent back, paid rent back. All these different factors are stressors that the sellers carry in addition to price, but they're both fairly equal. Yep. And to be able to set proper expectations for the consumer, say, no, this is what the seller needs, giving them that opportunity, you'd be surprised what the buyers are willing to give them, especially in a competitive situation. Because what a seller may value is one thing as far as conditional and/or price. Who determines that ultimately is going to be the market. And when the buyers can see that other people are willing to give them that price or valuing terms that same way, they're likely to do it or improve it as well.
Yeah. And so I think of what you guys are facing right now as realtors in the States with all the commission lawsuits that are happening with NAR. In the States, the powers that be have determined that the best product or the best result or the best service to the end consumer is always the best price. That's what I take from it. In British Columbia, to me, it seems they have taken a different approach and they've said the best outcome to the consumer is dedicated representation. So I think in the States where you guys have, you can't share the cooperating brokerage commission publicly, all that kind of stuff anymore. That's to be negotiated on a deal-to-deal basis. In British Columbia, it's the opposite because I think that's going to bring more multiple representation, a lot of the public going straight to the listing realtor in attempt to potentially have some savings there. But also there's a discussion to be had about, how does having a buyer's agent get somebody fighting for you in the ring to represent your best interest too? And that's the approach that they've taken in British Columbia. And Ontario seems to be somewhere in the middle where we've brought in this Trust and Real Estate Services Act. We're still allowing multiple representation. We're also, still sharing cooperating brokerage commission and things like that. And I think the thought was, well, if we bring in open style bidding as an option, you can do it. You don't have to. And you can change your mind through the process and all that kind of stuff. It's making it a bit difficult, but it's allowing the realtor and their seller and buyer to pick the route that they think is going to yield them the best result according to them, not according to legislators or decision makers. And I think that can be a good thing. But I also think it brings a little bit of cloudiness because now the general public goes, wait, so is every sale going to be, an open style auction? We have this platform, it's called Final Offer. Is it basically eBay for homes or how exactly is this different? And what you mentioned a few minutes ago was it's essentially an offer platform. And so you have the capability to use this to simply keep your sellers and buyers agents up to date throughout the offer process. So it's structured. There's a communication function of it where you can sign up to receive updates on the property, right? So when we were originally talking about this, you mentioned that, well, you can go knock on all the neighbors' doors when you put up a new listing and say, hey, by the way, your neighbor's home is for sale. If you guys want to pay attention to the whole process as it's happening and get live updates, scan this code, sign up essentially as a spectator, and you're going to receive updates throughout the process. And then obviously realtors in the area, they can do that also. They can subscribe to the property so that they know what's happening. So there's none of this, hey, I noticed there's a sold sign on that property. Cody, you told me you were going to keep me up to date on that one. And then I go, well, shoot, you know what? The realtor sold it and I just touched base with them and they said, yeah, an offer came in. We didn't think that anybody else had interest. Well, now, no, automatically you're going to get updates if you're subscribed to this property. So I think that that's a great function of it too. And that's not even getting into the auction side of it. Do you want to talk maybe about how a platform like this can help with the whole offer process, whether or not you're engaging in the auction, option?
Of course. Well, Final Offer was built as a tool for agents to use. In order to use Final Offer, you've got to be connected to a licensed agent in the jurisdiction in which it's at. So you can't list a property on Final Offer unless you're connected to an agent. And in order to make an offer on Final Offer, you also have to be connected to an agent. I believe, of course, an agent is an integral part in the whole process, and everybody deserves and should have representation. Not everybody buys and sells houses every day. You've got agents that this is what we do every day, and so they need that support, they need that guidance. But when it comes to Final Offer, being able to use it as a tool, yeah, every agent has their own unique strategy that makes them, successful in their own rights, and that's what Final Offer wanted to provide. You don't have to use Final Offer and expose offers with price and terms and all that kind of stuff if that's just not what you're comfortable with and not where your seller's not comfortable with. That's okay. The very basic level of Final Offer, to your point, Cody, allows you to keep everybody informed in real time that offers were received. I mean, just think about it. Back when the market was crazy competitive, how many times you as a buyer's agent maybe called an agent and maybe was on the market for a few weeks or what have you, and you say, hey, I've got a client that's interested. Do you have any offers on this house? And maybe it's on the market for 60 days. And they say, well, Cody, funny enough is, we just received an offer this morning. Now, of course, Cody, I would guess that you'd probably be like, come on. And as soon as you tell your buyer, oh yeah, it's 60 days in the market, but now just this morning they got an offer, nobody's going to fall for that. With Final Offer, when an offer is submitted on the platform, you're going to get a timestamp of the day and time the offer was received. When that offer is received, it's also going to be sent to the seller and the listing agent in real time, as well as the buyer's agent and the buyer, letting them know that their offer was received on this day and time. Because on the other side of this, you as a buyer's agent submitted an offer to a listing agent. How many times do you ever question, I wonder if my offer was ever received or conveyed to the agent or the seller the way I intended on being conveyed? This fixes all that. It lets everybody know in real time that the offers are received and how many offers there actually may be. That's just at a baseline. So agents can be prepared and taking care of their clients the way that they deserve. Now, from that, it can escalate. You can grow into Final Offer as you get more comfortable in it and decide, okay, maybe now that I've received these offers, maybe now I want to negotiate with this level of transparency. Maybe I might want to share, what we call a seller committed price, a Final Offer price to help, with the negotiations. It's all in how you want to use it. But at a very baseline, Cody, it's an offer management platform that can, has advanced features to allow you to be able to negotiate.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a little bit about process. So it can be used just as an offer platform that helps communicate to Joe Public and Joe Public's realtor, representing them as a buyer. It can accommodate an auction style sale or be used for your very basic traditional style sale too. But you just use the transaction management side of it. What kind of results are you seeing it yield out there, Nathan? And I guess I'll ask you to offer two examples. So one is hot market or hot listing, and we are receiving multiple offers. And the other is maybe balanced or even buyer's market listings sitting on the days, or sitting on the market 60, 90 days, multiple price reductions. Would we still put those listings on final offer too? And what results would a listing yield from that? So hot market, hot home, lots of showings, lots of offers. Home that has sat on the market isn't in multiples. Maybe it's slightly outside of the average sale price, that's yielding those types of results, things like that. What are the results?
Great question, Cody. So, it's funny because regardless of what state I go to, province I go to, country I go to, I could go to a slower market and they're like, I love final offer. This is perfect right now in a slow market. But I can't imagine how well this would work in a hot market. Why would they even need it? Then I go to a hot market and they're like, this is awesome in a hot market with all the competition and it helps me manage all the offers and I never feel like I left anything behind. But I just don't know how it's going to work in a slow market. Then I get other people say, Nathan, this is amazing for buyers agents and buyers. I love this platform. I just don't know why a seller would ever want to use it. And then I go talk to the listing agents like, this is perfect for listing agents, perfect for sellers. Why would a buyer want it? The reality is final offer works in any marketplace that people are buying and selling real estate. Bottom line. And to share, before final offer, and I'll tell you later how I got introduced to it, but before I started using final offer in DC Metro, the market that I serve, the average agent would sell their listings around 98% of the original list price. And before I was using final offer, my listings would sell an average of about 107% of the original list price. I was doing fine before final offer. But since I've been using final offer for the last 2.5 years in the DC Metro area, my listings are now selling an average of 112% of the original list price. Getting 5% more money for my clients by using final offer than what I could have otherwise gotten them traditionally without final offer. Now, when I share these results for people that know me, they're like, well, Nate, look, I get it. Like, that's you. Like, we know how you do your business. We know your market. Like, we get that. But how does it work for everybody else? Well, here's something that's crazy to see that final offer, the average agent that is using final offer, they're selling the listings an average around 104 to 105% of the original list price. That's across final offer altogether throughout North America. But here's another interesting stat. And we did this within the final offer team. Cody, as you know, like I run a real estate team. I've got 11 people on my team. My team is great. I think they're amazing. We've been together for, some people I've had on my team for well over 10 years. Not every agent on my team, to be honest, is comfortable using final offer. And that's okay. Because final offer doesn't have to be for everybody. I'm very comfortable with using it, but it's something people sometimes have to grow into to understand it. And over the last 2.5 years, we've ran a study to say, okay, from the listings on the Dart Homes team. Now, with the Dart Homes teams, you know my systems, but everything's very consistent. Like I've got my operations manager prepares the CMAs and basically lays out what the price should be that they should list it for. After the listing agreement is signed, goes to my transaction coordinator where we do all the marketing. Everything is laid out. It's all consistent. So pricing's consistent, marketing's consistent, everything's consistent. Well, with all that consistency, we ran a study for the last 2 years. Said, okay, what's the difference between the properties that went on final offer compared to the properties that did not go on final offer? Well, what we found was that the listings that did not go on final offer sold in an average of 27 days in the market for an average of 109% of the original list price. Wow. I'm sorry. For 109% of the original list price. While the listings that did go, the ones that did not go on final offer sold for 103% of the original list price, where the properties that were on final offer sold for 109% of the original list price for 8 days on the market.
So that's an apples to apples comparison. Same market, same time frame that you're using for that focus. I guess 2 focus groups there. There was a difference of about 6% in the final sale price, and then also it was a third of the time on market. Was it 27 days to 7 days, or I guess it'd be 25% of the time to 8 days. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, then if what I did on final offer, well, my listings that I did were 112% of the original list price. So this is a system for people to use as a tool. and it can highlight, your strategies, what is it your experience level is, and why it is that you demand to, better results for your clients. I mean, in our industry, we've got, regardless of where you are, you think about it, in your market, how many agents run around saying and advertising that they're the number one agent in the marketplace? We
Everyone.
see it all the time.
Yeah.
Everyone. And the thing is like in, wherever, in Windsor, in Maryland, or whatever, how many number one agents should there be? There should only be one, but yet everybody says they're number one. See, consumers are tired of hearing all the noise, because that's all it is. It's just noise. Consumers deserve to see actual proof of the results that you're able to demand for them, rather than all the false promises that our industry has been built up on for so long. And Final Offer exposes that. And it lets people truly see and allow you as an agent to differentiate yourselves from the other agents in the marketplace based on what is you've done, not what you say you're going to do.
Can I push back on that and try and poke a little bit of a hole in that, and then I'll bring it back to a different discussion too. It's like,
Please.
objectively speaking, if I was, I guess, looking at it and I not totally trusting the system and don't fully understand it, I would probably just say, okay, well, Nathan, you're just, looking at list price and sale price. So you're just listing low. Like, you have a reserve price and then you're just selling it over that. And also I'd go, okay, well, as the buyer, why would I like this system if the average home on it is selling for 6% more? How is that good for the consumer if I'm overpaying for it? And I guess I'll bring this back to a story of when I bought my first house. So when I bought my first house, it was not a multiple offer market. And the house that I had been looking at was on the market for, I think, like 14 months when I bought it. It was leaking. It smelled nasty. It didn't have, a heating and cooling system. And so I was looking at it, and a teammate and a mentor of mine mentioned to me, Cody, you should go look at this place because it's got a large frontage, and I think you can sever the lot. And wouldn't you know it, kind of like we talked about earlier, after having been on the market 14 days, I inquire about it, and all of a sudden an offer comes in, right? And so I'm going, oh, great. And I'm talking with my dad through the process, and I said, well, there's an offer coming in. It's driving me nuts because it's been on the market for like 14 months, and there's so many issues with it. Like, I'm not going to get into a bidding war and overpay for this stupid thing. And so I said, what should I offer on this? And I'm a data guy. I love data, but there wasn't a perfect comparable to say it's worth X. So my dad said, okay, well, what you should do is, like, what price were you going to offer? And I think I was going to offer 102. And he goes, okay, well, is 102 your max? And I said, well, that's all I think it's worth. And he goes, okay, so if it sells for 103, tomorrow you're going to wake up and say, you know what, God bless the person that ended up getting that home because it wasn't worth 103. And I said, no, I'd pay 103. And he goes, okay, 104? I said, yeah, I'd pay 104. And he goes, 105. And I was like, nope, that's where I draw the line. It's not worth 105. It's got all these problems. And so honestly, objectively, if I broke down that whole scenario, and I did end up getting the home, after it was an accepted offer with someone else and the home inspection condition fell apart. But if I was the consumer, which I was in that scenario, if I didn't, if I was only offering the original 102 and it sold for 104, I would have been upset. And I probably would have said, you know what, I maybe would have even paid 104.5 or 105, but I might not have had the opportunity to bid up because I didn't know what the other person's offer was. And so although I hear you saying, well, the stats are showing that the average home is selling for more, well, as the consumer, there might be a circumstance where I would have actually been willing to pay more, but I didn't want to blindly offer substantially over what I was guessing the other person might have offered. And then the question I want to throw at you is, how much weight do these stats actually carry if objectively looking at it, I'm just going, okay, well, Nathan, you're just listing low, putting a reserve bid, and then every listing is going over the asking price. Like, what does this 112% figure actually mean versus your 103 or whatever it was?
It's a great question, and I'll answer that first. Yeah, the only way to truly show it to you is to show you comps at the same exact time.
Yeah.
But that's what I do with my marketing, Cody.
Okay.
Is I make sure that every time I do any type of marketing pieces, I definitely will show the proof over the false promises. I'll show them side by side comparisons where I've listed properties at the same price, if not even more than another house in the same neighborhood, same time, same interest rate, showing that they were able to get their results, yet I was able to get results, 10 to 14% over what they were able to produce. Same market, same price, But it's one thing for me to say it, I'd have to show it to you. And that's what we do in our marketing. As an example, like I was in a listing presentation just before we jumped on this podcast here. And prior to me going on the listing appointment, I let them know about final offer. Of course, they've been following along because every time I send out a just listed card, I send those just listed cards out to all of the neighbors in the area as well, and invite them to click on the QR code so they can watch in real time as their next door neighbor receives offers. And of course, as you know, Cody, there's not many neighbors that wouldn't be interested in seeing that in real time. And so they got to see the results as they had to produce for their next door neighbor. But even though I got to let them see that, I sent them prior to me going to the appointment, here's what final offer is. And here are the last 3 sales that have occurred within a 1-mile radius of your house that I did. And you can see the results that I was able to produce. You'll see that my list price was the same, if not higher than what your neighbor was. And yet I was still able to get significantly more money. What was it that made me different compared to those other agents? That's what we're going to discuss when we talk about how we're going to customize the strategy for you. So I totally agree with that. And that argument, you hear that all the time. If, that Nathan, he's underpriced and listing. It is impossible in any market that you're in to underprice a listing.
If because you the more competitively you price a property. Correctly. Yeah.
And now I'm not listing. I wouldn't. Well, I think I price things competitively. I don't price things lower. I price it competitively. And in order to price it competitively, I let the competition ensue. It'd be one thing if I was pricing competitively and taking an offer the first day. That would be disservice to my sellers. No, I will list a property competitively, but I'm not reviewing offers until 6-7 days of being on the market, making sure that I've optimized the exposure and the traffic through that property to ensure that I put the sellers in the very best position. And it's interesting going back to the data points, and I want to answer the other questions too, but it's the data that shows you everything you need to know. Like in my area of Montgomery County, Maryland, I know that if a house goes under contract in 8 days or less, the average seller receives 103% of the original list price. That's average for everybody. But once a house has been on the market for, say, 14 days on the market, then it reduces to about 99% of the original list price. Then once you get to 22 days on the market, it reduces to about 95% of the original list price, proving out that the longer a house sits on the market does not ensure the seller makes more money. It only ensures that they sell it for less. So, so many times people want to talk about, the price. We got to get you as much money as we possibly can. That is our goal. We want you to net as much money in your pocket as possible. And you just got to let the market determine that. And that's our responsibility as agents to expose them and negotiate on their behalf to demand that actually happens. Yep. But when it comes to, you're talking about for the buyer, why would a buyer ever want to use this if you're telling them that they're having to pay on average that much, much more of a list? It goes right to your story, Cody. How many buyers have you worked with in the past, didn't win the house that they thought was their dream home? They were upset. You maybe had an emotional phone conversation with them, say, but Cody, this is my dream home. There'll never be another house like this. And you had to assure them, because we know there'll always be another house. And then that house closes, maybe 30, your occupancy occurs, and they see that the house closed for maybe $1,000 more than what they were willing to offer. Well, when they see that, they say, well, Cody, how come you didn't tell me? Well, of course you did, but how come you didn't tell me? And if I would have known that, I would have paid $1,000 more. It's so critically important. And it's on this other side with the seller too. How many times has a seller maybe sold their house quicker than what they thought? And when they did that, they say, you know what? I wonder if my agent, maybe they didn't price it right. Maybe we underpriced the house. Well, the final offer fixes that. You can have confidence as a seller to know you're not leaving money on the table because of the amount of exposure that you had. And for those buyers, you never gave a buyer a reason to miss out because they could see exactly what they need to do to earn the property for themselves.
No, that makes sense. I guess the other part of it, and I've voiced this concern to you before too, is I said I think it's a great product. And now that I understand that professional representation is a pre-qualifier. It needs to be involved to be active in this process, in this platform. Also, there's a transparency. You set timelines. You set prices for conditions. And obviously, the seller still has the ability to negotiate with the purchaser. It's great on the communication side of it. I said, that all sounds great, Nathan, but I think there's going to be a big learning curve and a big education component. And I don't think it's going to get the average realtor's buy-in or Joe Public's buy-in until there's one widely accepted platform. And I know in Canada, I don't know, I can't speak to the States, and I imagine you guys govern yourselves from a real estate market individually in the States. And we do to some point in Canada also, because we have our provincial real estate associations, but we're also under CREA, which is our Canadian Real Estate Association. I said, until there's one widely accepted platform, I don't think it's really going to take off, because there's going to be a learning process involved with every platform. So there needs to be one that's kind of advocated for at a national level. And once we get that, like in Canada, we generally really trust realtor.ca because it is an entity that's owned by CREA, which is the realtors. So us as members, as realtors, we essentially own realtor.ca, and we have a lot of trust in that, and so does the average Canadian. In the States, it's different. Realtor.com was sold many years ago, but you have a lot of different homes.com and Zillow and all that kind of stuff too. But in Canada, we have pretty high regard for realtor.ca, and until there's one offer platform, I guess, that has advocacy at a national, provincial, and local board level, I don't think that we're going to get buy-in from an average realtor and the average consumer. So open offer is something that we actually, as realtors, saw in our web forms and our kits to put transactions together, and that disappeared. And I kind of said to you, like, it looked like there was one, Nathan, and then all of a sudden it disappeared and kind of fizzled out, it so seems. But then you had mentioned to me, well, no, not really. Final offer purchased open offer. And, we are working on a trial basis right now in certain markets in Canada. Maybe I'm asking something that I shouldn't be, and we can edit that out later. But I guess, what is the advocacy for final offer at a national or provincial or board level in Canada?
Well, great question. Lot to unpack there with that question. But to start is, yes, Open is still fully syndicated throughout Realtor.ca as an offer negotiation platform. We acquired Open about 6 months ago now. Final Offer did, so we actually own Open right now as it is. What you'll see on Realtor.ca is that's all going to be converted to Final Offer, no longer Open, by the end of the first quarter of 2025. With that, with bringing that into Realtor.ca by the end of the first quarter, we've also been able to work on Final Offer to truly meet the agents where they are. Cody, you said it exactly. Agents, if it's too complicated, they're not going to take the time to learn it, number one, even if you can prove that it's going to demand better results for their seller and their buyer. Now, that's another thing to talk about, which is a major frustrating point for me, because it's like, if I'm showing there's a system that could get your seller more money and make sure your buyers are never overpaying again, why wouldn't you tell your client? Yep. But I do realize that the resistance is that agents, for whatever reason, are not willing to take the time to learn, and that's fine. So that means I needed to simplify things. I had to find a better way to simplify Final Offer, so it just made sense for everybody to use it. And so what we've done is, with the feedback from the agents throughout all of North America, is to say, okay, let's not go against the grain too much in regards to how you would traditionally handle offer presentations. So what we've allowed for, in streamline the negotiations but still keeping transparency, is allowed for agents to upload actual PDF offers of their offer. Now, that's no different than how business is done today. So traditionally, you list a property for sale, somebody wants to make an offer on it, they're most likely going to send you an email of a PDF of their actual offer itself, and they're going to summarize the offer in their email. It's not likely that you're going to be receiving a fax anymore or somebody personally coming over to present the offer to you. They can, but typically it's going to be done in an email. Well, with Final Offer, you have the ability to take your PDF, upload it directly into Final Offer, fill out a summary of what the actual offer is, and then once that's filled out, it's then submitted on Final Offer. And once again, in real time, you as the buyer's agent and the buyer get notified the offer was received. At the same time, the seller received it and the listing agent. They get to receive it, and as the view for the seller and the listing agent, it's in a dashboard where it shows and outlines the entire offer, and if there are multiple offers, shows a side-by-side comparison of how those offers line up. The buyer and the buyer's agent, all they see, once again, is that their offer was received and whether or not there's any other offers. They don't see the price and terms at all. Nothing is exposed. So it's just very simple, just keeping everybody informed. But here's the thing. Let's say, going back to how does this work in a slower market and then compared to a hot market. Let's say it's a slower market. Let's say you got a property that's been on the market for 90 days. And let's say it's listed at 600,000 for 90 days. And somebody uploads a PDF offer as they typically would. And let's say the offer that they make is 550. Okay. Well, when that offer is received, the seller in final offer has the ability to accept the offer, reject the offer, or counter the offer. And you know, just as well as anybody here on this call is going to recognize that for us, it's always better to counter the offer in some way rather than just to flat out reject it, especially if it came in lower. So within final offer, you can go back to that offer that came in at 550 and say, okay, look, we got your offer. Thank you. But we're going to counter you back. We're going to counter you back at 560. And at 560, if you agree to our counter, you're also going to agree to allow us to expose this offer to everybody else that's interested in this subject property. And if no other offers come in during this period of time that we opened up an offer window for, if nobody else comes in, then we will commit to accepting your offer. But while the offer window is open and we've let everybody else know that we're willing to accept this offer at 560, anybody else can make an offer, but it just has to be at least 0.5% higher than what is currently being exposed. Or alternatively, option B, we're going to counter you back at 570. And at 570, if you want the house, you can just go ahead and click this and take it off the market right now, and you won't have to compete against anybody. Buyer, what do you want to do?
So
option A or option B?
So that's the eBay buy it now button, right?
In a sense. But what it does, what we track at final offers at 77% of the time, they're going to go with option B because they're afraid of being exposed and having to otherwise compete against somebody else. But for the ones that want to take the risk of being exposed, they also get the benefit of possibly getting it for $10,000 less.
So the emotional home buyer is typically going to take B because they have FOMO. If you're missing out, perfect neighborhood, great layout for the kids, close to the park, the school, whatever. The investor who's really just driven by the numbers goes, you know what, I'll let it ride. If I get it for that price, it's a deal. If not, I'm not going to overpay for it because I'm in competition. So you have that option as the consumer.
You have the option. And the whole time while serving your seller, both parties are happy because they understand the risk. And the seller knows that, okay, now if no other offers came in after it was exposed at that price, they know with confidence that they are not leaving money on the table and they are selling the home for as much as they possibly can because you as the agent have proved to them that you have exposed it to now everybody that's been following this home for the last 90 days. And yet there's only one person willing to pay $560.
Yeah. So
extremely powerful move.
When I hear that explanation, I'm like, that makes a ton of sense to me. However, I also go, it does sound a little bit complicated on the administration side of it. So I understand that I'll be able to do it, but I think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve to help me understand it. And then if I, as the listing agent, took the time to understand it, and I know you guys have a ton of training, and so far we've had one realtor specifically at our brokerage, Stacy, get started with it. And she's like, you know what, Cody, I reach out to the final offer team and they're on it. Like they get back to you right away. It's great. It's an online team and they're quick. That's awesome. However, what if the other realtor on the other side of the transaction doesn't buy into it? And so I guess what I have heard is whether or not they sign up for it, use it, understand it, whatever, as the listing agent, I still have the ability to operate as I normally would without final offer for them. They email me the offer. I upload the PDF as the listing agent. So if they're unwilling to cooperate as the buyer's agent, they can just send it to me like they normally do. Cody, I'm not buying into your new system, whatever. Just take my offer and present it to your seller. Same thing as I normally would with them. Okay, Jerry, no problem. I'll let you know what they say, but I'm still going to bring it through the final offer, system. And it's going to show up just like it was uploaded by Jerry that didn't want to play ball with our new final offer system here. But I just have to upload it myself. So I can still make it work with realtors that don't want to cooperate with the new system. However, if they realize, wow, you know what, there is benefits here, we should probably sign up ourselves and get familiar with it. And I think that's going to happen as you see more people adapt to it in a certain market. So as soon as 10 realtors use it in a small market, I think 50 realtors are going to be like, oh, well, now that that's the norm, like in my listing presentation, it's going to have to be, do you use final offer? And if I don't, well, then maybe I'm not going to get the listing now because it's something the competition is offering that I'm not. So I'll have to figure it out. But as the listing agent, the buyer might go, okay, well, or sorry, the seller might go, what if, all these old realtors in town don't want to play ball, but they have the buyer who's willing to pay the most amount of money? No problem. We can still handle it like we normally would. We just upload it on our end for them. So as far as they're concerned, it's a normal sale process.
That's right. The agents that say they don't want to participate, you have to say, well, help me understand what is it you don't want to participate in. Are you not interested in getting notified in real time that your offer was received and seen by the seller? Well, yeah, no, I'm okay with that. In fact, that's all I'm asking for. So it means that's all it is. You're not talking about exposing offers or anything. Just by uploading a PDF, just being notified that your offer was received by the listing agent and the seller. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, at the time that somebody goes to an A/B option, if then they decide to take the risk and have their offer exposed with option A, is then at that time that buyer would then sign acknowledging that they're comfortable negotiating their offer with that level of transparency, exposing the price and the terms of their offer. It's only at that time would they then sign that. Prior to that, there's nothing to sign by the buyer's agent. They're just uploading their offer into a platform or just emailing it to you for the listing agent to upload, just to keep everything streamlined and keeping everybody informed. So that's what we fixed, because Cody, when we came to market originally, and it's honestly still how I use it, I would go to the market, and I've used this analogy before, and I think it's, in my mind, the best way I can explain it. I've been with Final Offer since the beginning, so I was truly able to build this out as an offer negotiation platform that I would use. And so as I've built it out, I really built out as an example is like a custom Ferrari that I can take this Ferrari out. I can redline it. I am taking it to the edge every single time, and I'm totally fine with it. Problem is, I can't take the keys to the custom Ferrari that I created, throw it to just any agent and be like, yeah, it works for you just the same.
Take it for a rip.
It can. Yeah, but for the average agent, they may not even know how to start the car or at least get it out of the first gear. So it's you grow into it. And what we wanted to create Final Offer is I had to meet the agents where they were. So it's like, look, if I don't change any way of how you do business just to keep everybody informed, would that be helpful? Well, yeah. Well, that's what we created.
Let's start there.
And then, let's start there. And then we build on from there, because here's the other thing that it opened up for is, let's say it is a competitive market. And let's just pause and just talk about traditionally. So traditionally, if you listed a house today for $600,000 and say within the first couple of days you receive 3 offers, okay? Well, every time you receive an offer from one of these 3 agents, the agent's going to always call the listing agent and say, hey, I've got a client that's interested. We're going to write an offer. I'm hoping to know, how many offers do we have? When are you looking to make a decision? And what will my buyer need to do in order to ensure that they win, right? These are the questions they're always going to be asking the listing agent. So traditionally what you then do is you take these 3 offers, you put them on the table with the seller and say, okay, based on the 3 offers that we've received, look, buyer number 2, it appears that they have the most attractive offer out of all 3 of them. Here's what I recommend. Let's go back to buyer number 2, see if they're willing to make this one small change. And if they are, then we're going to accept buyer number 2's offer. Well, that's how we do it traditionally. But Final Offer allows us to be able to elevate that, because here's the problem with the traditional way of doing business. When you gave that option to buyer number 2, you have no idea whether or not buyer number 1 or buyer number 3 would have met or exceeded what you gave to buyer number 2, let alone with everybody else that was following that particular listing. With Final Offer, we can now collect these 3 offers that we have in the PDF. Nothing has been exposed other than the day and time that they were received. Looking at those 3 offers, having a conversation with your seller to say, now after we've reviewed these 3 offers, what price would you be willing to commit to? Second to that, knowing that price is not always the deciding factor of which offer to take, how would you value certain conditions based on what these 3 offers are? Inspection, financing, appraisal. And that's where you can then set what the seller would say, this is my seller committed offer price and terms. If you give me this price and these terms, I'll commit to taking your offer after I expose the offer for X period of time. You could determine that however you want. And if that's the case, once your offer is exposed, if no other offers come in, then we're going to commit to it if this is the only one that's there at the end of the deadline. But now that we've exposed that, now those three offers have been asking you as a listing agent constantly, how many offers? Well, you can see it on final offer. We just showed you. When do you make a decision? Well, you got an offer window clock that's open, so you know exactly when a decision is going to be made. And what do I need to do in order to win? You can see exactly what you need to do in order to win. So at that point in time, now in order to participate, they agree that, yeah, okay, I'm now comfortable negotiating my transaction with this level of transparency. Thank you for giving me exactly what I asked for. And so now they're negotiating with that level of transparency. And then through that, buyers never going to feel like they're left out. They're never going to feel as if they're overpaying. The seller knows confidently they're definitely not leaving money on the table. And while this property, as the negotiations start to ensue and maybe the values continue to go up, you as the agent, as the buyer's agent and listing still are in complete control of the entire situation. And if you then choose, you can always add the carrot, which is that final offer button, Cody, that we've talked about as well. The final offer button being the price and the terms. The seller says, hey, look, at the end of the day, if somebody gives me this price with none of these terms, I mean clean, then what, regardless of all the offers that are coming in, you can click that button. You can take it off the market right now. It can be yours. What do you want to do? And it's when you pick that final offer button, you want to make sure, obviously, you don't price it too low because you don't want to leave money on the table. You don't want to price it too high because it's never going to be achievable. And ultimately, people want to hit that final offer button because it's at a great price and clean of terms, hopefully. But you want to find that sweet spot. So that's really, you use that as the carrot to, entice the buyers to be competitive. And when they get caught in that competition, they might just say, you know what, just give me the opportunity to take off the market. This is my dream home. Let me make that decision on my own and give them that control.
Okay. So, I mean, that's covered what is final offer. Why did a system like this become, or what necessitated it in the first place? And I think the primary necessity that it's filling is transparency, which is what not only the public has voiced that they wanted, but also the people that decide legislature and various levels of government in the United States and Canada have said that, transparency is going to benefit the consumer, and an online platform can give that to them. So we talked about, okay, well, acceptance in the real estate industry, but also acceptance by the general public, and how we can make it work if someone has decided they want to keep doing it the old school way. How a listing agent can still utilize the process with their seller if their seller has decided, no, Nathan, I want to use this product and this service when I am selling my home. We covered the results that it's yielded, and I love that you can compare apples to apples. We have some realtors on our team at our brokerage that are using it and some that aren't, and we have real world examples of homes that are selling on the market at the same time in the same neighborhoods, all that kind of stuff. That might be a good place to start wrapping it up. Is there anything that you want to leave the audience, the listenership with on a final note? And then I guess tell us how we can get a hold of Final Offer for a product demo and all that kind of stuff too.
No, well, thank you, Cody. This has been hopefully very helpful for your listeners as well. And look, anytime you bring a new product or platform to a marketplace that we've already known how to do business successfully for so long, I understand that it's difficult. I get it. And the thing about our industry, like I said, I love this industry. I have no interest in ever being replaced. I believe that our industry as a whole needs to be elevated for sure. I don't have a problem saying that. I think for your listeners, you already are dealing with a high caliber of agents that are willing to take the time to learn more. I think that's fairly telling itself. But this will elevate our industry. It's going to elevate the experience for everybody that chooses to be involved in it. The reality is your clients deserve better, and they deserve better results, and that's what they believe in you for. And using Final Offer as a tool can demand those results, and it can be proven based on what it is that they see, bringing more trust in it through that level of transparency. But it's just about learning, and I encourage that if you want to try Final Offer, we have found a better way to simplify it with not taking away how you typically do business, allowing you to be in a position to be able to grow into it. And Cody, you made a comment about the concierge team at Final Offer. I got to tell you, I am so impressed with our concierge. I know it sounds self-serving for me to say it, but I'm very impressed by our concierge service. They're there to backstop everything. Look, I know how important your reputation is in your industry, for your clients, and everything that is that you do. And when you're taking on a new platform, like I just don't know what happens next, knowing that you have somebody like the concierge team at Final Offer to back you up, to make sure that you're not going to put your reputation at risk and or put your clients in a bad position is so very important to us at Final Offer. We've got you through the entire process. We're here to support you, guide you through the process so you yourself continue to grow into the platform so you can redline that Ferrari however you want to, but in doing it in your own pace. So, Cody, thank you for the time just to be able to help educate more people to what Final Offer is. There are some misconceptions for people that have just chosen not to learn about Final Offer. And anytime I have an opportunity to be able to share and educate people on Final Offer, I'm always grateful for. So thank you, Cody. For people that have questions, yes, it's easy. It's finaloffer.com. We've got plenty of people there that are more than happy to help. You just go to finaloffer.com and connect with somebody immediately. If you want to connect with me personally, you can feel free to send me an email at nathan@finaloffer.com, and I'm happy to be a resource any way that I can as well. I am an agent, so obviously I'm not a tough guy to find. If I was, I wouldn't be very good at what I'm doing. So you can also find me on social media and online without any problems as well. So, but yeah, that's what we got there, Cody.
Well,
unless you got something else for me.
No, that's it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day away from your family, your work to do this with me. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Nathan Dart and a little bit about Final Offer. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the show, folks. Please keep in mind that this show is not offering legal, financial, or accounting advice, but rather opinions and experiences in the world of real estate from the host and the guests. If you're enjoying the show, please rate, review, and share with your friends and colleagues. And if you think that there's someone that needs to be on this show, please feel free to connect them with me. Or if there's a topic that should be discussed, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much, and bye for now.